my channel. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to paint a misty mountain landscape. If you've been to my blog before, you've already seen this painting uploaded, but there's never been a video with it. So today I'm creating that video. But if you're new to this channel, you're new to my blog, this video is completely new, so it may look just slightly different than the painting I've already uploaded on the blog. However, I am going to be showing you step by step how I created that painting with the same techniques with this painting. This is a beginner level tutorial. It's great practice for anyone starting out with watercolors. I will have a link to my blog in the description box below, as well as all of the products that I will be using. If you'd like specific paint colors and specific materials that I will be using in the video, head over to my blog where I'll have more detail on how to paint this painting, and then also the details on those paint colors and things like that. If you're new here, click that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and let's get started.
Alright, so today I'm going to be teaching you how to paint a mountain landscape using the same color. We're just going to be using the same color of blue, but we're going to be adding a darker value to it each layer to give it that, to have the dimension that we want in the painting. This is called a monochromatic painting, meaning we're using the same color. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to be grabbing whatever blue you want. For specific details on the paint color I will be using today, head over to my blog, Reflecting Creation, to check out the specific color that I will be using. Just pick up whatever blue you want, put it into your palette, and then our first layer is going to be our lightest layer. So you're going to want to add a lot of water to where it's a very light blue. Remember, this is going to be the lightest layer, and once we put other layers on top, there's going to be no way to go back and make this lighter. All right, so that's all you have to do. Grab your flat brush and then paint in the entire area with that color. I'm adding a little bit more blue because I can barely see it. There we go. And just paint in the entire back. I did use painter's tape or washi tape to make my borders, so I don't have to worry about whether or not this painting is going to have those crisp white lines or that edge. The painter's tape is going to do that for me. All right, I'm adding just a little bit more blue just so you can see it a little bit better. It looks very light. All right, and then I'm going to grab my heat gun, and my heat gun is going to just completely dry this layer for me so we can move on to our next step. Now that that layer is completely dry, we can move on by adding more blue to our palette. Again, you do not want this to be the darkest layer, but you do want it to be darker than your first layer. It's really great to have a scrap piece of paper handy so that you can test out your color right next to it to see if it's going to make a difference. All right, so there we have that. So just add more paint and less water to make a darker value. And now I'm going to be grabbing my round brush. I am going to go back and forth on this layer with both the flat and then also the round brush. And then with this one, I'm going to grab my paper towel. I'm dabbing off any extra water on my brush, and then I'm dipping it right into my blue. And I'm first going to make the outline of my mountain. So it's going to come up. Let's see, I'm going to start here actually. Come up. And then it's going to curve down and then back up just a little bit and then back down. I'm going to grab more paint. I'm going to go right underneath it, tapping in along to keep it wet, and then filling in the bottom, and then I'm going to tap in just again, just so the tip has a little bit of like depth to it, not just completely flat. And then this is when I'm going to take my flat brush and I'm going to dip it into that color, and I'm going to fill in underneath all the way down to the very bottom of the painting. And you can kind of go back up with your round brush or your flat brush and kind of just touch in any details you see, you don't like. I'm going to grab a little bit of a darker blue, again, just for the very tip, just to kind of give it some depth and dimension again, and come down. There. All right, now we're going to have this layer completely dried, and then we'll move on to our second layer. All right, now we're going to go in with our third layer, and we are going to get, again, our paint darker. This time I added the same color blue, but then I added a little bit of orange paint, which is its contrasting color on the color wheel, which gives it more of a grayish, darker tone. The more you add these two together, the more gray you're going to get. So just adding a little bit of orange darkens up the blue in a very natural way. So now I'm going to be using this. I tested it out on my scrap piece of paper, and I'm going to be creating my second mountain. I'm going to start right below it, and I'm going to go very jagged and upward. And then I'm going to come down. I'm kind of filling it in as I go, just because I don't want it to dry and get a weird, like a bloom or a blossom that might happen if I let it dry before the other paint gets on it. Then I'm going to kind of just curve up a little bit and just make a little bit of a jaggedy shape coming across. And then, like I did above, I'm adding a little bit darker paint just to the tips, and then I'm dragging it down, and I'm going to grab my flat brush, and I'm going to fill in the rest of the painting. And because I added the darkness to the tips, it also helps kind of cover up a little bit where it might be a little translucent and you can see through the mountain behind. That's one thing about watercolors, it's very opaque, it's very transparent, so it helps adding little layers like that to kind of help cover up the layer you just had behind without having to go back in with a second layer. If you do have to go back in with a second layer, it is okay, it's not wrong to have to go back in. Sometimes that really will help your painting look a lot nicer. All right, once again, we are going to let this completely dry, and then we are going to be moving on to our next layer. Now that this layer is dry, we're going to go in with our next mountain. So I still have quite a bit of paint left over. I'm just going to be adding some orange to this paint mixture. And you'll see I already have this really murky looking gray. So I'm going to take off a lot of the water off my brush, and I'm going to be dipping it into the blue paint so I don't have as much as much water in there, which will help it get darker but not be so transparent. Again, I do not want this to be my darkest layer. I have one more layer to go after this one. I'm going to test it in over there. I think it's good. I can always go back over it if I need to. Okay, so we are going to start above this mountain, but on the side. And we are just going to come straight down. And then we are going to go up over it. And then back down. And just disappear into the background. Or into the side of the painting. And then I'm tapping in along where I already painted. And I'm just filling in the rest. And remember, this is going to help cover that mountain behind. Remember, your mountain doesn't have to be perfect triangles. Mountains aren't perfect in any way. They're very all over the place in their shape. So don't feel like you have to do it exactly the way I'm doing it or the exactly in a perfect shape. And then I'm just blending in with my flat brush. Just like that. And then I feel like I need a little bit more at the tip, so I'm just quickly throwing some blue paint in there And I'm just tapping it in where I think it needs to go. Just like that. Make sure I'm still in frame. And I'm just going to pull this up like that. And there we have that layer. We are going to let that dry, and then we will come back for our final layer. Alright, so we are going to go to our last layer for our mountains. We are again going to mix some orange and blue together to create our darkest mixture of paint. Kind of just play around with the color. Feel free to pause the video and get this to where you test it on your scrap piece of paper and you see that it is darker than your previous. And again, if you put it in and it's really light, wait for it to dry and then go over it again with a darker paint mixture. Alright, so we are going to start. Dip your brush in. Have your brush completely dry before you dip it into your paint, just so that it's the thickest level of consistency that we can get. And then you're going to start about halfway down from your mouth. Start about halfway from the center of your box, just a little more than halfway. Okay, I need to add more blue, more paint to get thicker. It's very light. All right, and then, like I said, halfway, there we go. And we're just gonna kind of create little tiny, jagged, I guess I said jagged, but I meant curved-ish, and just kind of slightly go above where your last mountain left off, and then pull the paint down. With this one, depending on how large you're doing this, I'm doing a very small thumbnail style painting. You can use your round brush to fill in the rest at this point. I'm just gonna have it come a little bit more angled down. And then there you have it. You have your Misty Mountain watercolor landscape. Alright, that was our Misty Mountain tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it and that you found it helpful. I hope you learned something new. Again, if you haven't already, click that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. I hope to see you again in my next video. Bye.